What's up, everybody? Today is my champagne birthday, and my gift to you this year is part 6 of the Gateway Experience. Returning viewers, I gotta say, this is the best video that I've made so far. It is the culmination of everything that we've talked about in videos 1 through 5, which if you're new here, maybe go check those out. But make sure you make it back here because we are finally putting everything that we've been learning together to learn exactly what the Gateway program is trying to do. By the way, if you haven't done so, please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. I would love to hit 100 subscribers on my birthday. So stick around and enjoy the penultimate video of the Gateway Experience. Again, if you're new here, I'm Zayna and this is Zayna Breaks Stuff. We'll start part 6 with section number 22, Special Status Out-of-Body Experiences. We'll start with the wise words of Wayne McDonnell, our author, where he says, "Although human consciousness can, with enough practice, move beyond the dimension of time-space and interface with other energy systems in other dimensions, the entire process is appreciably enhanced if that consciousness can be detached in a large measure from the physical body before such interface is attempted." Basically, if you can induce a remote viewing or out-of-body experience situation before you start traveling to different dimensions, it'll make it way easier. Once someone becomes proficient in out-of-body movement and then reaches the point where they can break out of time-space while out of their body, they gain the advantage of clicking out part of their enhanced consciousness while starting from a base located much closer to the dimensions in which they would like to communicate. I know I say this literally every video, but I don't think I'll ever read a weirder sentence than that. Basically, someone who is well-versed in out-of-body experiences and remote viewing has an advantage to someone who's still stuck and attached to their earthbound body when it comes to starting to traverse universes and clicking out and spending more time in the absolute. To put it in simpler terms, person number 1 who has had out-of-body and remote viewing experiences is starting from point T to get to point Z, rather than person number 2 who has never done any of that. They're starting from point A to get to point Z. Let me know if that makes sense in the comments. Once the individual can project their consciousness beyond time-space, that consciousness would logically tend to entrain or synchronize its frequency output with the new energy environment to which it is exposed, therein greatly enhancing the extent to which the individual's altered consciousness may be further modified to achieve a much heightened point of focus and a much refined oscillating pattern. To clarify, once someone can extend their consciousness past the time-space dimension, they're able to continually adjust their brainwave frequency to synchronize with the environment that they're in. This is because they're exerting more control over their brainwaves, making their frequency tighter and tighter until it looks like a virtually straight line. This not only allows them to access more dimensions, but it allows them to click out for a longer period of time. If a practitioner of the Gateway program has the choice to either concentrate on expanding their consciousness beyond their body or to concentrate on increasing control over out-of-body experiences, the better choice is to choose to increase control on an out-of-body experiences. This is because it leads to a better foundation and overall a better success rate when continuing through the Gateway program. Part 23 is the absolute in perspective, and here McDonnell recommends that we take a moment, take a beat to recap our intellectual journey from space-time to the absolute. And honestly, I agree. It's been a hot second since the beginning of this series, and I don't know about you, but I could use a refresher. We've talked about the universal hologram, which is the complex hologram that's created by the intersection of energy patterns generated by all dimensions of the universe, time, space included. We've noted that our minds constitute energy fields that interact with various aspects of this hologram, the waves taken in by our right brain and interpreted by our left brain to employ the process we call thinking. We've implied that the holograms of both our consciousness and the universe are the finite embodiment of inactive energy from the infinite consciousness of the absolute. AKA, the universal hologram is actually the absolute in an enclosed space rather than in an infinite space. This allows for active energy rather than resting energy, like in the absolute itself. As a reminder, the absolute is a vast pool of infinite energy at perfect rest from which the physical universe not only comes from, but is layered on top of. To elaborate on that concept, our friend Itzhak Bentov has an analogy regarding the very deep sea. The sea's still, non-moving depths represent the absolute, while the storm-tossed waves above represent our physical universe. The currents of the sea between the deep sea and the surface of the sea represent energy going into rest or infinity, or becoming active and leaving infinity. These are the intervening dimensions that lie between our world and the absolute. Section number 24 is From Big Bang to Torus. Working from the Big Bang Theory, not the TV show, but the scientific theory, Bentov presents a conceptual model that depicts the process by which time-space evolved and discerns the location of the universal hologram. Basically, Bentov's about to explain how he thinks time-space evolved and how it either evolved in response to or with the universal hologram. This hologram is often called a torus, T-O-R-U-S, as it's often thought to be shaped like a self-contained spiral. Bentov's theory is based on the distribution of quasars and operates on the theory that smaller processes in the universe mirror larger ones. Okay, definition time! A quasar, or a quasi-stellar object, or QSO, is a massive and extremely remote celestial object emitting exceptionally large amounts of energy and typically having a star-like image and a telescope. It has been suggested that quasars contain massive black holes and may represent a stage in the evolution of some galaxies. As for Bentov saying that smaller processes in the universe tend to mirror larger processes, an example of this is how the pattern of electrons around the nucleus of an atom mirrors the way planets orbit their suns. Then, using the previously given information, Bentov postulates the following scenario. Taking as cue from the observed capability of quasars to eject enormously concentrated beams of matter from their interiors in a controlled, non-centric version of the Big Bang, he envisages a similar process occurring in the generation of the universe. Bentov then notes that the galaxies north of us move way quicker than we do, and the galaxies south of us move much slower than we do. In addition, the galaxies to our east and west are quite far away from us. The locations of these other universes, as well as the speeds at which they move, are something that Bentov takes as evidence that the jet of matter that expanded into our universe, aka the quasar that helped generate our universe, turned back upon itself, creating an oval-like shape. This shape from now on will be referred to as the cosmic egg. He sees matter in our universe entering the cosmic egg after ejecting from a nucleus composed of extremely compressed energy through a white hole. At the end of its trip around the egg, the matter departs via a black hole. You guessed it, it's definition time. For those of you who don't know what it is, a black hole in this context is a region of space having a gravitational field so intense that no matter or radiation can escape. If you're looking for a more general definition, perhaps to describe your ex, it's a place where people or things, such as emotions or especially money, disappear without a trace. A white hole, on the other hand, is a hypothetical celestial object that expands outward from a space-time singularity and emits energy in the manner of a time-reversed black hole. Unlike a black hole, which can be entered and from which energy, matter, and light cannot escape, a white hole cannot be entered, and light, energy, and matter have the ability to leave it. So, to simplify Bentov's previous statement, the matter of our universe comes in through the white hole, goes around the cosmic egg through the energy fields that surround/create our universe, and then exit/are sucked out by the black hole at the end of its round around the egg. In the above cosmic egg model, time is observed to be a measurement of change, which occurs as energy evolves into newer, more complex forms as it progresses from the white hole of the cosmic egg around the egg and is devoured by the black hole. In other words, as energy, expelled from the absolute and forced to be within the confines of our universe, achieves form and motion following its ejection from the white hole, time begins as a measure of the cadence of this evolutionary movement as reality goes around the shell of the cosmic egg. To simplify, when energy is expelled from the white hole, it becomes active because it's now confined within the limits of our universe, aka the cosmic egg. Time also becomes a measurement of the state of energy's evolution as reality moves from birth to death. Let me know in the comments if that made sense to you or if it didn't, and if you're enjoying the video so far, please drop a like. It is my birthday, and every like and subscribe and notification bell is a gift. Section number 25 is called Our Place in Time and begins by telling us that based on the distribution of galaxies around us, that we must be at the top of the cosmic egg where energy starts to turn back upon itself. This would explain why the galaxies to the north of us are moving more rapidly. They're on the downstream of matter towards the end of the cosmic egg where the black hole is. Layered over the cosmic egg is the absolute, which sustains the radiating nucleus from which the original jet of matter issued forth, i.e., the white hole is constantly spitting out energy from the absolute in order to sustain and support the existence of our universe. As matter is ejected from the white white hole and goes around the cosmic egg before it re-enters the nucleus and then is absorbed by the black hole, it generates an interference pattern known as our universal hologram, or the torus. Since the torus is simultaneously generated by matter in all phases of time, it reflects the development of the universe from the past, present, and future, as would be seen from our particular perspective at a certain period of time. Basically, all time exists and can be seen at once within the torus. By using this model, it becomes possible to see how human consciousness, if altered or brought to a certain state of focus, would be able to obtain information about the past, present, and future. This is because all three of these exist simultaneously within the universal hologram, or torus. Moreover, it's possible to see how the constant turning in of energy patterns would lead to energy crossing and recrossing to create an incredibly complex 4D hologram, or torus, in spiral shape in reflection of the multidimensional developing pattern of evolution. All of the movements of the energies which comprise the universe leave their mark and hence tell their story throughout time, which is honestly super cool. The next section is section number 26, quality of consciousness. Wayne McDonald continues here, saying, "We noted earlier that the out-of-body state involves projection of a major portion of the energy pattern that represents human consciousness, so that it may move either freely throughout the terrestrial sphere for purposes of information acquisition, or into other dimensions outside of time-space, perhaps to interact with other forms of consciousness within the universe. Consciousness is the organizing principle that brings and keeps energy in motion within a specific set of parameters so that a specific reality will occur. When consciousness reaches a state of sophistication in which it can perceive itself, aka perceive its own hologram, it reaches the point of self-cognition." Okay, so to summarize the last 3 points, number 1, out-of-body experiences allow for consciousness to either interact with the beings of other realities or to collect information about other realities. Number 2, consciousness creates a specific reality within a certain set of parameters. And number 3, self-cognition occurs when a hologram begins to perceive itself. Okay, that should clear up all the basics of consciousness that we've talked about so far. To continue, both humans and the absolute have an elevated state of consciousness, but in the case of the absolute, it's more of an omniscient, all-knowing state of being. Side note, it's starting to sound like when we die, we're reabsorbed into the absolute. And on top of that, it sounds like the end of the universe is on the horizon because we've made it past the hump of the egg, so to speak, / we're at the hump, so we can only go into a black hole from here at what apparently is a rapid speed based on the universe is north of us. Anyway, when energy returns to a total state of rest within the absolute, it returns to the continuum of consciousness and the pool of limitless, timeless perception that resides there. So the more complex the energy system in the material state, the more consciousness is required to maintain the reality. I honestly have no idea how they got to that point from the last point that I made, but I'll buy it, makes sense. Our consciousness, therefore, is the differentiated aspect of the universal consciousness which resides within the absolute. It accounts for the organization of the energy patterns that comprise our physical bodies, but is separate and superior to it. Since consciousness exists apart from and outside of reality and outside the bounds of space-time, it, like the absolute, has no beginning or end. Reality has both a beginning and end because it's bound by time-space, but the fundamental quantum of energy and its associated consciousness is eternal. When reality ends, its constituent energy returns to the infinity and the absolute. Okay, let's clarify all of that because God knows what we just read, or should I say, absolute knows what we just read. As I mentioned in my previous videos, every universe has a part of it in the absolute. In our case, it sounds like our consciousness is the part of us that's within the absolute. While our consciousness establishes the reality of our physical bodies, it's inherently separate and superior because it is part of the absolute. And because our consciousness is part of the absolute, it has no bounds, aka no beginning, no end. And finally, without bounds, our consciousness is eternal. And when our physical reality ends, our consciousness will return to the absolute from whence it came. Section number 27 is consciousness and perspective. So now that we know that human consciousness can separate itself from physical reality, can travel to different dimensions, and not only travel to different dimensions, but communicate with other intelligences there, and on top of that, is eternal and is eventually going to rejoin the absolute, the question must be asked, where do we go from here? Since memory is part of consciousness, it can be assumed that when our consciousness does return to the absolute, it'll take all the memories with it that it made throughout this reality. So not only do we get to keep our memories when our bodies die, we also get to participate in the never-ending consciousness that is the absolute. What consciousness does lose, however, is the ability to generate independent thought holograms. As I mentioned before, holograms can only be created in places with active energy, and in the absolute, there is no active energy because it's a place of perfect rest energy. So while consciousness retains the ability to perceive holograms, it can no longer generate them, which prevents it from having any kind of willpower or power of choice. In exchange for its power of choice, consciousness gets to reside in the all-knowing infinite continuum of the absolute. Okay, so when our physical reality ends and our consciousness returns to the absolute, we get to maintain the knowledge that we've gained from the physical realm. We get to continue to learn things because we maintain that ability, but we no longer have the ability to make choices and have free will. But in exchange for that, we get to prance around eternity and the infinite consciousness. So I guess that's a trade-off. If you would like to see part 7 of the Gateway program, the finale, the hype, everything you've been waiting for, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. It's my birthday and all I want is to hit 100 subscribers. Ho! See you next week.